I will get the.
You're good.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Can everyone hear or see my screen?
Looks good.
All right. All right. Welcome in today for another webinar. We have AgSpire on with us. Before we get started with that, just going to open up with a quick intro here, talk about BattleGround and Breaking Ground. So through the Expanding Agriculture Opportunities for Veteran Farmers and Ranchers grant through the USDA that gives us the opportunity to do webinars like this. Some of the program goals are to enhance coordination of the outreach, technical assistance, education, and training efforts for USDA agriculture programs, and assist the Secretary of Agriculture in reaching military veteran farmers and ranchers and improve their participation in USDA programs. Some program activities are to expand the current BGBG online curriculum by adding enhanced agriculture business and agriculture production training courses. Develop hands-on learning events that include training in funding and technical resources, farm business management, financial planning, agriculture production, including climate smart practices and local and regional food systems, as well as to raise awareness of outreach and technical assistance services available for military veterans and farmers and ranchers. So currently in our webinar series, we've had on Texas Veteran Commission, Beef Loving Texans, USDA Rural Development, and here we are with AgSpire. Upcoming, we have Texas Agriculture Cooperative Council on June 11th and Capital Farm Credit on June 18th. So I'm talking about our hands-on learnings. I'll talk about when those dates are in a little bit, but the hands-on learnings are to give participants the opportunity to see live demonstrations and practice skills learned in the online courses. And the idea is that participants will be able to complete the online course and then attend the hands-on learnings to gain real-world knowledge, experience, and skills to enhance their ability to successfully manage their ag operation. If you are in the military or you're a veteran, you're eligible for a $362 stipend. The first 10 participants that sign up are eligible for that, for the hands-on learnings. So upcoming events, we have the sheep hands-on learning coming up in College Station here at the Beef Center and Sheep and Goat Center on April 2021. So make sure if you're interested in that, get signed up. We have the Beef Cattle 101 course coming up in May 18-19, and Natural Resource Management and Pasture Rangeland Management coming up on June 24th through 26th. So get signed up for those. If you're trying to figure out where to get signed up for those, you can go to the website, our website, go to sign up for our newsletter, follow us on Facebook. We post everything on there, all of our events. We'll post it to our story, and so you can keep track of that and whatnot. And or you can follow our events calendar. And if you're completely lost, go to the email, send an email, and we'll get back to you and help you any way we can. All right, the survey link. Heidi has posted the survey link for this webinar in the chat. Please, once we've gone through the webinar and Drew has talked about AgSpire, please take the time. It takes 2 to 3 minutes to fill this out to give us a little feedback on the webinar. We will be monitoring who has completed it, and we'll be taking the names of those who have completed it. Heidi will put it in a quick drawing, and the winner will be able to participate in our boot camp for free, or our hands-on learning of your choice for free. most of our hands-on learnings from here on out will be there will be a small registration fee to help cover food and materials and whatnot. So if you do win, then that will be covered for you. But we understand a lot of the people coming to the webinars are prior or current students of ours that have already gone through boot camp. So we want to give that opportunity for you to win another prize that of value. So with that being said, I will unshare my screen and pass things over to Drew to talk about AgSpire and the resources that he has to offer through that.
Yeah, thanks, BJ. Let me get everything pulled up here. You all can see my screen, hear me okay? You don't see the speaker notes or anything?
Yep.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Let's dive into things then. First off, I want to start with saying thank you to everybody here who's active duty or is a veteran. It's because of sacrifices like yours and your family that we're all able to be here today. So really appreciate your service or your family's service. A little bit about myself to start today. My name is Drew Slattery. I'm the Director of Business Partnerships here at AgSpire. I lead a team of regenerative ag experts who design and manage producer-focused resilience programs, and we'll get into those a little bit later here. AgSpire works with food and ag companies across the value chain here in the U.S. to support producers and then translate on-the-ground impact with producers back to the value chain, back to those corporates, restaurants, retailers, groups like that. I grew up on a cow-calf operation there in Texas, right outside College Station, actually. I have a degree from Oklahoma State as well as Tarleton, and have spent the last 15 years in regenerative agriculture. Really like to spend my free time open fire grilling and enjoying the public lands out here in New Mexico where I live. So a little bit about AgSpire. AgSpire is a privately held company that is here to offer incentive programs for producers to help you increase your efficiency and your resiliency. We partner with corporations and groups across the ag and food value chain, organizations like restaurants, retailers, grocery stores, and the companies that service them, food companies that service them, to bring funding and to bring technical assistance to producers to help them make changes to their operations or achieve their goals on their land as they need to. So we'll start with a couple other stats here before we dive into things. And I just want to set the stage a little bit. These next two slides are going to be stats that are focused on Texas, but this kind of thing is happening across the nation. These slides come from the Texas Ag Land Trust, so big shout out to them for putting these together for us. Appreciate that. There in the center of the screen, you'll see a pretty scary number. In the last 5 years, Texas has lost more agricultural land than in the last 20 years combined. That's 32 football fields per hour of agricultural land that Texas has lost to development. Right. Going along with that, only 1% of Texans are stewards of the state's 81% working lands. Right. So really start to think about that. 1% of individuals in Texas are land stewards. And land steward doesn't necessarily mean landowner. It means someone who's working on the land, right? So a very small group has a really big impact on what's happening within the state. So as we go through this today, think about the role that your operation might have in terms of contributing to what's going on. So we're here today to talk about carbon and sustainability programs. Obviously, since we're talking about Texas A&M and Texas, I had to throw in some King of the Hill. Of course, if you haven't seen this episode, I highly recommend it. Dale gets involved in carbon offsets and shenanigans ensue, as you might imagine. But I did some research this week and found that the state of Texas has probably 30 plus, 36 plus quote unquote sustainability programs that beef producers or other producers are eligible for today. 7 or so carbon credit programs or carbon related programs, 7 supply chain, nonprofit, or other not carbon programs, and then 20 or more federal or state programs. So, with almost 40 different programs to choose from, what do you even do? How do you even start that, right? That's a big lift and that's scary and that's a lot of noise that producers have to get through. So we're here today to hopefully help you understand how you can think about it, how your operation can benefit from some of these different kinds of programs, and how you can decide what is the right path for you, because what is the right path for you and your operation is not going to be the same as what's right for your neighbor or your friends, family, colleagues. It's going to be very individualized. We've all seen the headlines about carbon credits, right? And the vast amounts of money that's flowing through that to producers and to or from corporates. But we've also seen really scary headlines too, right? We've got some examples here on screen of both the good and the bad. And so when you have close to 40 programs and scary headlines and really exciting headlines, that starts to make it a little bit confusing. So again, we're here today to help you think through that. I think the biggest thing that I would want, to really set the stage here with is that ranchers, producers, farmers, whatever your operation looks like, whatever size or scale it is, you can benefit from these programs if you find the right one for you, for your needs and for your operation. These programs can help you fund the upgrades to your ranch or to your operation that you already want or are already thinking about. Resilience here is the real win. It's not just about creating carbon credits or water credits or doing something like that. It's helping your business, your small business, your operation get better and be able to withstand drought, markets, weather, tariffs, war, like whatever is going on in the world, another pandemic, like, whatever craziness awaits us in the future. Your operation can be better set up to withstand that if you build the resilience through these programs, which can help fund that. This is not about trends or bandwagons, right? You're not chasing a flash in the pan here by getting involved with these programs. You're using the available tools and you're using other people's money to help build your operation in the way that you want it for whatever goals you're focused on, whether that's the next generation or that's just, your lifestyle or whatever it may be. That's what it's here for. Think about it like adding an additional revenue stream, right? You're diversifying your business. You're adding another commodity to your ranch by getting involved in these sustainability programs. So now instead of raising just cattle and hay and maybe some chickens, you're also selling environmental outcomes into the market through some sort of mechanism. So you're adding a fourth commodity to your mix that can help you understand that can help you build that resilience and income diversification. So really these programs fall into two broad buckets, and this is super basic, very, very broad, highest level possible. Carbon credits, which you've probably heard of. These are also called offsets. This is where a company continues as usual, and then they buy a carbon credit from the market. And those carbon credits typically come from agriculture or forestry. And they use those to offset the carbon footprint of their supply chain. So a really good example of this is like airlines. Obviously they burn a lot of fuel. That's a huge carbon footprint. They buy carbon credits because there's not really anything an airline can do. They have to burn airline fuel. So they're left with no other option, right? On the right-hand side, scope 3 action, also called supply chain programs. These are a little bit different. These are when organizations like food companies, restaurants, or grocery store chains, retailers invest in the agricultural producers who produce their goods, basically, and create ranch level or operation level improvements within their own supply chain, or at least within the US agricultural and food supply chains. Those carbon benefits then stay in agriculture and stay within the industry and are attached to the commodities that the producers are producing. So instead of a beef rancher creating a carbon credit that then gets sold to an airline, within the scope 3 action programs, a beef producer creates a carbon impact, and that carbon impact stays attached to their beef, which then goes to a restaurant chain or a retailer within the US. So I mentioned scope 3 just really quickly. We'll talk about what the different scopes are. Won't spend a lot of time on this. Basically, in emissions and carbon accounting and sustainability world, there are 3 scopes that matter. Scope 1 is all of the on-site energy consumption and material processing and vehicles that it takes to create a good. Think about going to a restaurant chain and ordering a cheeseburger. To get that cheeseburger to your plate, there's all of that energy consumption at the restaurant and the processing plants and everything like that. Scope 2 is anything that's related to the electricity and the water that's involved in these processes. And then Scope 3 is where agriculture falls, and that's downstream distribution and use of the product itself, and then processing of sold products. So why are we hearing about supply chain sustainability today? On the left-hand side here, you'll see several risks that the beef industry or the agriculture industry in the US is facing, right? There's increasing public and stakeholder pressure around performance and sustainability and being environmentally friendly and health and everything else. There's market volatility, right? We don't even need to get into that. It's very apparent. Everything, from tariffs to global security concerns to anything else that's going on, even going back as far as COVID and the pandemic. And then there's natural resource and weather challenges, right? Some of you are probably pretty dry right now, and some of you might not be, and that comes and goes, right? So as all of these different risk factors put pressure on the beef industry, that drives the cost and the availability and the quality of the available beef that retailers, grocery store chains, restaurants have to work with. So by investing in producers of all sizes, from the smallest to the largest, these organizations, corporations in the food sector, retailers, restaurants, processors, all of those folks, they create ranch level resilience through these sustainability programs, through these supply chain programs in Scope 3 that help the producer stay afloat and stay solid through all of these risks, right? So that not only creates storytelling to the public to address those public concerns, it helps the producer stay profitable and stable as things change and ebb and flow over time. And it makes sure that these businesses, these beef operations, stay in business long term, right? Because the less beef ranches there are producing beef, the harder it is for these companies who sell beef to source the beef that they need on time in the way that they need it, right? More cattle operations is typically always a good thing. So this is more than a trend. You'll see here on screen that we've got the NCBA, National Cattlemen's Beef Association, National Corn Growers, and then Dairy Management, three of the biggest ag industry groups in the US. They've all set sustainability related goals or carbon or climate related goals. On the left-hand side, you'll see a survey with the amount of companies who have made science-based target commitments. Science-based targets is a corporate sustainability accounting framework, but the goal of this slide is to show you that it's not just a few companies. It is a lot or most companies, and it is also the industry itself that are focused on creating sustainability, resilience, climate, environmental impact. So here's another slide with some more statistics. Basically, 400 US CEOs, company CEOs were surveyed, and 87% of those 400 have maintained or increased their investment in sustainability since 2025. My point in showing this slide is that the world is changing very fast, and it changes day to day. And the politics of today is not the politics of yesterday, and the politics of tomorrow may not be the politics of today, right? But this slide here shows that despite what's going on in the world and how fast things may or may not be changing, there is still overwhelming investment in sustainability programs from corporations and from CEOs. So again, this is not a trend. This is not a flash in the pan that's potentially going to go away in 3 years or something. This is here to stay, and it's something as producers that you all can tap into to help your operations and help you accomplish the goals that you want to. So again, here, these are some of the organizations who are involved in the US Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. Not all the organizations, but just some of the ones that you probably would recognize. Again, just to show you that these types of organizations are investing in producer financial and technical incentive programs because they see the value in making sure that American producers have the tools and the resources they need to be successful on their operations. So we'll shift gears here a little bit and change start talking about scope 3 versus carbon credit programs. So you'll see two columns here on screen, and these slides are all available to you all after this if you want any, and we'll do Q&A here at the end as well. But want to make sure that we're able to help you think about what's right for you. So a scope 3 program and a carbon credit program are going to be different, and they're going to look different. They're going to provide different value to you, and they're going to come with different risks, and they're going to come with different burdens. And your job as a producer, as a small business owner, is to figure out which risk profile fits you best, which one is going to help you solve your needs best, and make the right choice in terms of what's best for your alignment and what you need. So on the scope 3 side, those are typically more flexible. They have a broader set of eligibility requirements. They have a shorter commitment, and they have a faster and potentially smaller payment rate. On the carbon credit side, those can typically pay more and sometimes can pay significantly more. They offer multi-year security because they are potentially long-term agreements. But they do come with a higher involvement burden, and they may have stricter eligibility requirements. Longer obligations require more data from you or that you have to provide as a producer, and the payment lag could be anywhere from 1 to 2 years potentially, depending on your specific program and the operations. So as you think about what's right for you, you really need to be thinking about where you are today, where you want to go, and what's going to keep you from getting there, and how do these programs align with reducing those barriers. So I'll give a brief example here over the next couple slides. This is an operation in Nebraska, I believe, 500 total cows. They have a split fall and spring herd, and their goals were to lower the number of calves they lost during calving season. They wanted to have fewer open cows, and they wanted to increase their fall weaning weights. Obviously, all of this so that they can, increase their efficiency and increase their dollars. Right. So they got involved with one of the AgSpire programs that we run out there, and did a couple things that I'll explain here over the next few slides. And then I'll show you an impact slide of what their involvement in this program did in terms of pounds of beef that they were producing, as well as some financials related to that. So to deal with the death loss that they were having, AgSpire and the producer worked together to change their calving location to somewhere that was going to be a little bit healthier, lead to less scours and less stress on those calves and on those first calf heifers having those calves. Did rotation through a dry lot during calving as well to help with higher weaning weights, and then age segregated the calves to help create more efficiency and put more pounds on those first calf heifers. In addition to that, we also did a synchronization plan with them. That tightened up the calving window, led to earlier calving, which then creates more weight gain when you go to market or when you go to ship. They did AI with high growth male sex semen. That leads to more male calves, which is a higher opportunity for weight gain and obviously more dollars at sale. They also worked on their feed strategy to help support all of this, not only in terms of health, but in terms of conception and fertility on those cows that they were synchronizing for the breeding program. All of this, designed to create efficiency and really dial in that fall calving herd. Here's the slide that matters, right? So through this program, they received about $20,000 in program participation payments from the program. And in addition to that, we're able to make about 81,000 in terms of their increased pounds sold and fewer open cows, sorry. There on the left-hand side, you'll see that bar chart with the increase in weights over the 1 year in the program. So when we talk about these sustainability programs and what they can do for your operation, this slide here really is it, right? You're getting financial incentives and you're getting technical assistance to implement changes on your operation to your management style, to the way that you're managing your animals or pasture or crops, whatever it is, that helps you implement that change. And that change is going to lead to increases in efficiency or other increases that are going to ultimately bring you more dollars at the sale barn or at the grain yard or whatever you're doing, because you're going to be producing more for less. So we do have a program that's live in Texas right now. It's called the Texas Better Beef Program. It's pretty open in terms of what we're working with. Could be anything from herd health and reproduction, genetics, nutrition. We're also doing grazing management, pasture utilization, stocking rates, and all of that grass management stuff as well. We're paying about $10 to $40 per acre or $10 to $40 per head, depending on the practice. Some of these, obviously like genetics and reproduction and herd health stuff, those are per head. And then on the grazing side, it's per acre of grazing that we're working on together. You've got to adopt and maintain 2 practices, allow for soil sampling, and then it's a 1-year contract that you should or you will re-enroll through if you stay in the program. There's a QR code on screen there that you can click to learn more. And there's a URL here as well. If you're interested in learning more about the program, we'll have somebody reach out to you. So here, before we get into Q&A and discussion, I'll just run you through a couple slides that I think are going to help you as a producer, as a small business owner, think about what's right for you and how do you identify that and how do you even start to deal with this really noisy marketplace of different programs and different companies all trying to get your time and attention. Yeah. So I think the first thing that's important for everybody to understand is that you've got to know what your goals are. Your business goals, your land goal, your herd goals, your legacy and the next generation, your kids, what you want to do there, and your personal goals, right? The lifestyle that comes with farming and ranching. That's such a big part of why we all do this, right? So start there. Have these written down, have a good understanding of them, and have everybody who's involved in management with your operation, whether that's a spouse, family, cousins, children, whatever, have everybody align around these and really understand them and have them out in the open, because that's the first step. You can't do anything if you don't know where you're headed, right? Once you've got your goals figured out, you've got to find the right program. So the right fit will help you accomplish the goals that you laid out without creating burdens that you can't bear. And that's the really important part here. All of these programs come with some sort of participation burden. And that burden could be really light and small, or it could be really, really big and heavy. And how heavy it is going to be different for everyone. So if you keep really good records and you have just an immaculate set of spreadsheets at your place with everything written down in detail, maybe the burden is less for you and it's really not a big deal. If you're running everything from, a paper notebook on the dashboard that you sometimes don't remember to fill in, the burden of data might be a little bit harder for you. So you've got to think about your management style, how you both currently manage your operation, but how you want to manage your operation. Because not everybody is in farming and ranching to fill out spreadsheets, right? So yeah, you've got to understand your management style, and that's what's going to help you dial in on what is a burden and how much of a burden is too much for me or for my operation. Here's a few key questions that we think are a good guide to help you sort of filter through to find what is the right program for me. So remember that for all of these, there's no wrong answer. There's only wrong for you programs. Yeah. Values, really important, right? Who benefits from the program, and does that mission align with how I want to run my ranch? I'll go back to the airline example in the beginning, tech companies as well, data centers, carbon credits, all of that. You need to be okay with that, and you need to be okay with that mission if you're going to get into business with those types of organizations, right? Because it's a really awkward and challenging situation to be in if you sign up, this year, and then 2 years from now you decide, I really don't like the fact that all this work I'm doing on my operation is benefiting some, tech company or whatever the case may be. that's a problem for you, right? So you really need to think about values alignment, and if you're okay with that or if you're not okay with that up front, because that's a hard thing to get away from further down the road. You also need to think about your exit and risk coverage. If droughts or markets or your goals change, how easily can you adapt or walk away? If you have a family situation and you have to sell land, or you have to change your management, or and who knows what might happen, what is your exit plan, and how are you covered there? Is there a way out? Is there a problem? How will you navigate that? That's something to think about as well. Contract flexibility. Do the terms and the timelines and the constraints within that contract let you run your operation the way that you need to, the way that you want to now and in the future? Because the last thing anybody probably wants to do is to sign up for a program and then have to completely change the way that they think about running their business to fit the needs of this program. That's not sustainable or feasible for anyone. So really sit down with the contract terms and understand how that's going to impact your management, and if you're okay with that, and if it aligns with the way that you both do and want to manage your operation, because that's important. You don't necessarily need to change the way that you're managing your operation, but we do need to find you programs that align with your management style. Again, going back to that example of the spreadsheets versus the notebook on the dashboard of the ranch truck, if you want to just use the notebook on the dashboard approach, that's fine. And no one's here to tell you that that's not great or that's wrong or anything. But you need to find programs that are going to work with that management approach and are going to be synergistic with that, and it's not going to cause a problem. Because if you want to manage it through a notebook on your dashboard, there's probably going to be issues in some of the more data heavy or higher data burden programs because of that. The payment structure is also something else for you to think about. How much you're getting paid obviously is important, but when are you getting paid it, and what happens if the conditions in the market change? Does your payment go up? Are you locked in? Understanding that, and especially understanding that as it overlays with the cost of whatever practice or change you're thinking about, right? So a really common one is paying for seedings for native grass, right? That creates a lot of carbon benefit. That's good for grazing. There's tons of opportunity there. But native seed can be expensive, and especially depending on where you are and what you're planting, the cost of that seed per acre could be prohibitive to you. And if you're not getting a program payment for 12 months or more, then you have to front and pay for that seed day one to put it in the ground. And then you have to sit on that cost for potentially 12 or more months. That may be a problem for you, right? So understanding what the cost is to participate in these programs, what the cost of the practice is, and then making sure that that aligns with the payment that they're offering, not just the amount of the payment, but the timing and the structure of the payment, with how you're managing your financials there on the operation. Next is practice fit. So really understand what your operation needs and what you want, and then understand if this program that you're considering or that you're looking at is requiring you to implement practices that you don't need or you don't want, or that are not aligned with the way that you want to run your operation. Is it going to create a lot of disruption? Is it going to create a lot of challenges or slowdowns or unintended cost, unintended consequence? If I change the way I manage this field, do I then also have to change the way I manage this other field and I didn't think about it? That sort of thing. You really need to understand what all is entailed with whatever the program is asking you to do from a practice perspective, and then make sure that that aligns with where you are and what you want to do and where you want to go, going back to where we started with your goals, because there may be several programs out there that are not aligned with the way that you want to manage your operation, and that's okay. Again, there's no wrong answer to these questions. There's just wrong for you programs, because they don't align with the way that you run your operation. And last is data, cost, and control. So understanding what exactly all the data is that you're going to have to provide, who owns it, how they use it, and what is the burden on you of collecting this data going to be, right? All of these sustainability programs, whether it's a carbon credit, a scope 3, and anything else program, they're going to require some level of data from you. Just there's no way around that. But some of them can require 2 or 3x what others provide, or sorry, what others require. So you have to really be clear about what exactly the data points are they're going to want from you, how often they're going to want that, and how you're going to go about providing that as part of your participation in the program. If you're not set up on your operation to do a lot of data management and data work, then a really data heavy program is going to be a problem for you, because you're going to sign up and then they're going to ask you for these 500 data points, and you're going to say, man, I don't know, I don't even have that, I don't even know where to start with any of that. And nobody wants to be in that position, right? Like that's not good for you as a small business owner. So everyone is going to have different records and a different record keeping style, and you need to find a program that aligns with your record keeping style and where you want to be in terms of record keeping, because that's important. Across all of these questions here that we've just talked about, all of these issues, you need to both understand what you want to do and where you are now, right? Because as we said, these programs can provide you with financial incentives and the financial payment needed to level up, to get to the next level, to do the next thing, right? And so just because you're here in one place today doesn't mean that you want to be there in 6 months or in 12 months or in 5 years, right? So understand where you are today and understand where you want to get to eventually, and see if these programs can support getting there eventually. Maybe you're managing your data out of the notebook on the dashboard today, but you know that you want to get better than that, and you want to change, and you want to do something different, and maybe this is how you do it, right? This program is the motivation and provides the financial and technical support you need to be able to get off that notebook on the dashboard and into a different data management approach. Think about the programs as a tool, right, to help you do what you want to do and to do what you need to do on your operation. So again, I'll just hammer this home real quick before we close and open it up for questions or conversation. There's no one size fits all program. The right option is the one that fits you, fits your family, fits your land, fits your animals, your goals, your capacity, and your comfort level now and into the future. So really think about all of those different aspects of these programs before signing up for any of them. Focus on what helps your ranch, right? Water, forage, grass, fencing, resilience, all of these things are important and they matter. And you're going to have your own unique set of challenges based on the land that you manage or that you work with. So you really need to understand what it is you're trying to solve for, because there is probably a program out there that is focused on that or that can help you do that. And the last thing here is that Scope 3 and sustainability programs, they're not a buzzword, they're a business tool. These programs are about smart, practical improvements backed by large supply chain partners who have a stake in your success. And that's the important part there. They have a stake in your success. These investments in these programs are being made by restaurant companies and retailers and food companies and CPGs, because they want your operation to succeed, because the more successful American agriculture is, the easier it is for everyone in American food to do business, right? When beef producers struggle, restaurant chains selling cheeseburgers struggle. When beef producers struggle, grocery stores selling steaks struggle, right? We've all seen the price of beef and the headlines about it and everything else. Ensuring that the producer is operating in a viable way and is resilient to market and environment and climate and weather challenges is the number one thing that these giant corporations can do to to make their businesses run smoother. So they have a vested interest in your success, and they're here to partner through these types of programs to let you manage your land in the way that you want to manage it, um, with their support. So I'll close there and open it up for any questions and conversation. My email is here. Our AgSpire website is here as well. Please feel free to reach out afterwards. I'm happy to connect or follow up with anyone as needed. But yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen there. That's all the slides I've got. And if there's any questions, happy to jump into that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Drew. That was some great information. Before we hop into questions and answers, if everyone that is participating could please go to the chat and click on the webinar survey link that Heidi has posted in there and fill that out. That would be amazing. And then you guys can work on that as we go through questions. And right before we wrap up, we'll do a drawing for prizes. So with that being said, you can either throw your questions in the chat or ask Drew your questions directly. And Heidi, if you don't mind monitoring the survey.
Yep, I'll give it a cheer if you can refresh, see where we're at.
Perfect. Thank you. Maybe people are working on the survey, so they're not. And if there's no questions, we can let Drew go, and but we'll give a few minutes here for people if you are finishing up the surveys and whatnot. But appreciate Drew. Thank you for coming out and sharing what AgSpire has to offer, and for everyone that showed up, thanks for coming to watch.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. I'll drop in the chat the URL, the link to the Texas program that we have. We also have other programs outside of Texas. I don't know how many folks here are not in Texas. I wasn't sure on that, but if you go to the AgSpire website, there's a producer page that lists all of the programs that we have all over the U.S. They're all mostly through the Great Plains and the Midwest and out west in cattle country for the most part. So yeah, I'll put that link to the Texas program in the chat. And if you're interested in learning more about it, we'll have somebody reach out to you if you sign up there.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Oh, that's a good question, BJ. And Drew, thanks for joining us. It was really neat to get a little bit better dive. I think I got to hear you guys when you first launched, and it's so cool to see how many more programs y'all have created through all that you guys do. So on our operation, we do quite a few of the things that you have listed and the programs that y'all offer. But we're always growing our herd. We're always adding more things to the way we do it and trying to do it better, trying to measure it better. Are those programs just for folks who haven't been doing them and are starting them, or can it be to improve the ones that we're already doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is a really important distinction between the two types of programs that I covered today. So in carbon credits, typically there has to be something called additionality, and that means a new practice on a new acre or a new animal that you have not been doing that practice on before. That's not always the case, but that is generally 90+% of the time the case with carbon credits. On the scope 3 supply chain sustainability side, it's very different. And so it does not have to be a new practice on a new acre or a new practice on a new animal. it can be the continuation or the expansion of a practice. So let's say you're doing grazing management today, and you've got a written grazing management plan. Tomorrow in the program, we can work together to level up that grazing management plan and improve it or further refine it, and that will still qualify for the program and for the payment. And it's going to vary from program to program. So the answer to your question is no, it doesn't have to be new, but you are going to have to find the right program that's going to work with that, because not every program that will work for. Most carbon credit programs require a new practice on a new acre. Not all. In fact, most other Scope 3 programs do not require that.
It's really helpful because I think in our CSs, you also have to be doing new practices either through equip or through or doing additional in CSP. So that's a really big benefit for folks who are already doing conservation practices.
So I got a question for you, maybe to help some of these guys.
Yeah.
Sure. So I noticed throughout this that you mentioned beef a lot. Do you cover a lot of the other livestock, such as sheep, goats, whatnot?
Yeah, so AgSpire works primarily in the beef and dairy space and the crops and forage that support beef and dairy. We don't currently, as a company, work in sheep or any other animal commodities. However, there are similar companies to us and similar organizations out there that do have programs for sheep and that do have programs for other livestock species. AgSpire as a company doesn't focus on those. However, there are others out there, especially out west or into the Great Plains. Equip was also mentioned. Something I maybe should add to that is any of the USDA programs can typically be stacked on top of a payment from an AgSpire program or a Scope 3 program, because the federal government is not claiming any carbon outcomes from EQIP or from CRP, CSP, whatever. So it's typically the norm that you get your EQIP payment if you're accepted for that, and then you're able to get the program payment on top of that. And so you've got those two payments funding the same activity on your ranch. That's not always the case, and obviously you have to deal with your local NRCS and FSA office, and you may or may not be successful in that. And so it's not a guarantee or anything, but typically you can do both because the federal government is not claiming carbon credits on any of this or anything.
Any other questions from the audience? Oh, here's one in the chat. Was there a specific size of herd that needs to be reached?
Not really. No, I'm not going to say that there's a minimum. Now that I think our programs and most programs out there are more likely to filter on what you're doing on your operation and how far along you are with some of these practices rather than the size of the operation. So just because you're small or smaller, don't think that you're automatically disqualified, because you may not be. And I can tell you for a fact that we turn away very large operations all the time because of where they are and how far along they already are. So to be honest, programs are more likely to support those producers who are not as far along in their journey. And I don't think size is necessarily a reason to be disqualified. So yeah.
Damon said, I saw the program helps with fences.
Yeah, fencing is especially or specifically when fencing is used for grazing management, and being able to improve your grazing management on your operation. Fencing plans is something that we can help with from a technical assistance perspective. And depending on the program, there may be funding available as well, either through our program or through other programs to actually pay for the fence. But with fence comes like management decisions. How am I going to rotate my cattle? What is my stocking density? What am I putting in here this day of the week? That sort of thing. And our technical advisors can support there as well.
I think you had posted the link up in the chat, right, Drew?
Yeah, that's the link to the Texas program, but I can
Mhm.
put a link to our other programs that are not in Texas in the chat as well. Let me just pull up the page for you. Yeah, so this link, the AgSpire website, this is all of our programs across the nation. You scroll down and there's quite a few there, but they're not in Texas. We just have the one Texas program that is the higher up link, Texas Better Beef, and then the AgSpire link is all of our programs in general.
Perfect.
Is the Texas program the only program that we can apply for in Texas? Or are you still eligible for the other programs as well?
You're only eligible for the other ones if you operate a ranch or farm in the other locations. All of these programs are going to be geographically bound. So we have a South Dakota program, for example, and if you're farming in South Dakota, you're eligible for that program. If you're farming in Texas, you're not eligible for the South Dakota program, and vice versa. Nobody who farms in South Dakota is eligible for the Texas program. So we kind of fence them off geographically.
Oh, very cool. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
I apologize. It's just too much to type here. So I have literally like 40 acres and a mule. And I'm trying to get into the to actually having cattle. I have goats and sheep right now and crops. So is this like a program that would be good for actually starting off to raise cattle also?
Yeah, our program, the Texas Better Beef program, you do have to have cattle already. You have to be managing cattle. So if you're not managing any cattle, then yeah, you're probably not going to be eligible for the program because it's a beef focused program. There's not anything that the program can do to help get you started. But if you get cattle going this year, then you would be eligible. I'm not sure about the other programs that are available in Texas that might be able to help with that. I'd have to do some research, but there may be some that are out there specifically to help producers set up their herd from step one. So yeah.
Gotcha. And that's kind of was my herd management question or herd size question. So if I picked up a couple of cows from literally my neighbor, and is that enough to get started, or does it have to be larger than that?
Yeah, there's not going to be a minimum number of animals. The way that we're going to do it is, or the way that we're going to assess eligibility is that we'll have one of our technical advisors meet with the producer, talk through your operation, talk about how many acres it is, how many animals it is, how do you manage it, what is your marketing plan, walk us through a year on the operation, and then they're going to make an assessment based on all of those factors. Rather than saying you've got a minimum of 15 animals or a minimum of 50 animals or a minimum of 100, we're not going to set that because every operation anywhere in the U.S. is so different that if we just start arbitrarily setting numbers, 100 cattle in Texas is very different than 100 cattle in Oregon, right? Where those herds are thousands of animals on average. So we don't do it that way. We would just take a holistic assessment of your operation and see if it aligns with what the program needs to do from the supply chain side.
And another question on top of that is if you aren't managing your herd at your property but plan on moving it to the property.
This is another good question and another difference between carbon credits and Scope 3 supply chain sustainability programs. A lot of people rent land and they graze their animals on rented land, or they move their animals around, or you're managing it somewhere else and it's not land you own. Like there's all kinds of different things like that. Typically, carbon credits require the land that is you're talking about to be owned by you. There may be some caveats to that, or there may be some ways around that in certain programs, but typically they require the ownership of the land. And so if the program is about grazing management, the animals have to be on land that you own. However, on the other side, rental land can be not a problem as long as there's a long-term lease agreement in place that's written down like on paper. The cash handshake with your cousin type of rental, that can be a little bit harder to deal with in these programs. So, we're not going to tell anybody how to manage their rental agreements, but if you have a long-term agreement, like 5 years, or that's not a problem typically. But as you evaluate programs, be sure to ask about that and look into that, depending on your rental, what it looks like for you, because every program is going to be different, and some might be okay with rental land and others might not. So it's not a hard no, but definitely check.
Awesome. All right, Heidi, are you ready for the drawing?
I am. Hang on just a second.
Right.
Let me share the screen.
All right, Jimmy Sanders. So we have either boot camp or future hands-on learning that you can get for free. Jimmy, are you still there? I see you're still in the chat here, or in the. Jimmy, have you been to our boot camp before? Hmm. Jimmy, if you're trying to talk, I can't hear. Okay, go ahead. Oh, still not hearing you, Jimmy. I think I saw your mute come off, but we can't hear you. Are you able to type in the chat, Jimmy? All right. Oh, there we go. Perfect. And so Heidi, if you are you willing to throw your email in there to get the like boot camp registration waiver for Jimmy?
Yep, I just threw that in there
Perfect.
with the email address. We don't actually have the boot camp registry set up. I won't be requesting that for about another month. Once
Okay.
I get that, then I will send out to the individuals that have won in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got that on our tracker too, so that I know. I just need your information. Good email for you.
Perfect. All right, and that is all we have for you folks. So I'll stay on a little bit just so Jimmy can get down that information and whatnot. But for the rest of you, Drew, thank you. You are free to go, and the rest of you, you're free to go as well. Thanks for coming on and joining us today.
Thanks, everybody.
Jimmy, were you able to get all that information? Perfect. All right. I'm going to close out of the meeting and we'll see y'all later.